today we're going to be talking about ancient Greek city-states. Greece wasn't actually just a country, it was divided up into a bunch of city-states, which were called polises. There were 10 main city-states, and there was Athens, Sicyon, Corinth, Sparta, Thebes, Argos, Mycente, Megara, Olympia, and Syracuse. The city-states didn't really get along very well, so they each had different types of governments. Each city-state was independent until someone threatened one of them, and then they would work together to fight against the enemy. So it's pretty much a brother-sister relationship. Like, you don't get along until someone threatens the other one, and then you'll do anything to not let the person who's threatening your brother or sister to, yeah. Pericles was an Athenian statesman. He was the central ruler of Athens during the Golden Age, and he was the central patron behind many of their achievements.
Sparta and Athens were two Greek city-states. Sparta was a city-state with a very strong army. They also had slaves and were very feared. Boys started training to be warriors when they were very young, like 7 or 8. Girls were also warriors and were trained to fight. Boys and girls were forced to fight and couldn't retire until they became very old. Athens was a city-state and was also very powerful. They were a monarchy and a democracy. They had a very strong navy and often traded. They also practiced science. They made lots of art as well. Both Athens and Sparta thought they were the best, and this led to the Peloponnesian War. Thousands were killed and Sparta eventually won. Greece was unstable after this, and this eventually led to Alexander the Great coming in.
Alexander the Great was the ancient world's most skilled general, who launched one of the most successful military campaigns of all time. He crossed Asia, took over the Persian Empire, and conquered territory all the way to the borderlands of India. He had led his army on a journey lasting almost 10 years and covering more than 20,000 miles. Alexander the Great died at the age of 33. When he died, his generals split his empire among them. Preserving Greek Macedonia ruled for many years in places like Egypt, Persia, and Central Asia. Alexander's greatest accomplishment was the preservation of Greek art and the fusion of it with other societies' tradition to create Hellenistic culture. This gave birth to the Greco-Buddhist culture. The Egyptian city of Alexandria became one of the ancient world's greatest centers of trade, learning, and culture.
Ancient Greece had 4 main types of government. They had monarchy, which is a government ruled by a king or queen. Oligarchy, which is a government ruled by a few powerful people. They had a tyranny, which is government where all power belongs to one person, and it's cruel or unfair treatment by people with power over others. And a tyrant in ancient Greece was a powerful individual who gained control of a city, state's government by appealing to poor for support. And then they had democracy, which is a political system where supreme power lies in a body of citizens who can elect people to represent them. The ancient Greeks were polytheistic. They had 3 main gods, which were Zeus, who's the god of lightning, Poseidon, who's the god of the sea, and Hades, who's the god of the underworld. Some of their other gods were Hera, who was married to Zeus, and she was the goddess of marriage. Demeter was the goddess of agriculture. Athena was the goddess of wisdom. Apollo was the god of sun, truth, music, poetry, dance, and healing. Ares was the god of war. Aphrodite was the goddess of beauty and love. Hermes was the god of travel, Gaia was the goddess of the earth, and Persephone was the goddess of springtime and the goddess of the underworld. There were three main Greek philosophers. There was Socrates, who taught people by answering questions with questions, and he was seen as the father of Western philosophy. And then there was Plato, who was Socrates' student. His cornerstone of thought was the theory of forms, where there's another world of perfection. And then Aristotle, who was Plato's student, and Aristotle taught Alexander the Great, and he started a famous school. The ancient Greek literature, the Greek alphabet is more than 250 years old, and it's still used today. Greeks were the first Europeans to learn how to read and write. Their oldest form of written language was known as Mycenaean Greek, and Homer was a Greek poet, and he's the author of the Iliad and Odyssey.
As the Greek power faded, a new force emerged in Europe. The Romans spread outward to dominate the Mediterranean, creating one of the largest and longest-lasting empires. For several centuries, Rome remained a monarchy until rebellion created the Roman Republic. During this period, Roman society experienced tensions between the lower and upper classes. It was during the Republican period that Rome expanded to the Mediterranean Empire, conquering the Italian peninsula and then fighting the Punic Wars. Rome won this war, marking them the strongest state in the Western Mediterranean. Rome kept expanding, and such rapid expansion caused the collapse of the Roman Republic. Poverty worsened, and many of the urban poor joined violent mobs. Rome was shaken by a series of civil wars, and political power began to fall into the hands of a single ruler. War followed until 31 BCE, and after this the Roman Empire was founded by Caesar's adopted son, who restored order, revived Rome's strength and wealth.
Constantine was a Roman emperor. He outlawed Christianity and killed many people that believed in it. He also was a very strong military leader. One day, he was on the battlefield, and he was losing terribly. He looked up in the sky and he saw a cross. He knew it was God, and he ordered all of his men to paint crosses on their armor and shields. He fought for God, and he won the battle. After he won the battle, he became a Christian. He spread Christianity throughout Rome. This later became the official religion of Rome.
Julius Caesar was a statesman and general who expanded the Roman Republic through a series of battles across Europe before declaring himself dictator for life. He is remembered as one of the greatest military minds in history and credited with laying the foundation for the Roman Empire. In 70 BCE, when he put together a private army and combated Mithridates the Sixth, king of Pontus, who was declared war on Rome. When Caesar returned to Rome, he began to work with Pompey, a former lieutenant under Sully, who switched sides following the dictator's death. Not long after, in 68 and 69 BCE, Caesar was elected quaestor and then went to serve in several other key government positions under Pompey. Over the years, Pompey and Crassus had come to be intense rivals, but once again Caesar displayed his abilities as a negotiator, earning the trust of both men and convincing them to be better suited as allies instead of enemies. This partnership among the three men came to be known as the First Triumvirate for Caesar. This political alliance and the power it gave him was the perfect springboard to greater domination. Caesar's reforms greatly enhanced his standing with Rome's lower and middle class population, but his popularity with the Senate was another matter. Caesar's wished to include his former Roman enemies in the government helped spell his downfall. Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus were both former enemies who joined the Senate. Together, the two of them led the assassination of Caesar on the 8th of March. Following Caesar's death, a power struggle ensued in Rome, leading to the end of the Roman Republic.